Yes, sir, you are.
All right, thanks.
All right, well, it is 4 o'clock. I am going to get us started here. I'm going to start by closing our executive session and resuming the public meeting. This is the Port of Bellingham Board of Commissioners regular meeting for Tuesday, November 7th, 2023. I'm going to start with roll call. Commissioner Bell.
Present.
Commissioner Briscoe.
Present.
And Commissioner Shepard is here. All three commissioners are present. I'm going to start off by reading our advisory committee schedule, and then we'll move into public comment. We have one upcoming meeting for the Marina Advisory Committee, or the MAC. That is November 14th at 6 p.m. here in Harbor Center Building, and that's an in-person meeting only. The BIAC, or the Bellingham International Airport Advisory Committee, does not have any meetings for the remainder of this calendar year. There are a couple ways to participate in our meeting. Thank you all for being here in person who are. We are also live streaming on Zoom and YouTube at the same time. I've got a couple people signed up for public comment. We ask for public comment to keep your comments to 3 minutes. The commission may or may not ask follow-ups or respond, and we may take this up during other business if appropriate. All right. First person I have is Miguel Perry. Yes, at the center. Center console, yeah.
Thank you. My name is Miguel Perry. I've been a carpenter since 1980. Went through an apprenticeship 4 years. After I had gone to school, college, University of Washington, and ran out of money and was looking for options, and it's changed my life. I've been now all these years as a carpenter, and the carpenters have apprenticeships that help kids after high school find another path. And we have within our local right now 3,000 members. Many of them are residents in Bellingham, Whatcom County. And the sad part, and I've seen this, we used to do a lot more work when we're talking about unions in this area. More and more we're seeing that's not happening. We want to create a level playing field, and it's sad to say that it doesn't happen. And part of the reason is sometimes you'll have general contractors who mean well, who may look good on paper, but then they have subcontractors who come along and they don't play by the same rules. If you've been in construction, if you know anything about construction, you know there's an underground economy, that not everybody plays by the same rules. And it creates an unfair cost advantage for some of our contractors who are not able to get these projects. And that's a concern that we have. And we're seeing it more and more. We know that many times there's infrastructure funds going into some of these projects, but the land is leased and it becomes a private project, and eventually it becomes a race to the bottom. And we're just trying to create a level playing field. And we feel that we have a lot to offer when it comes to these projects, and we would like to create a partnership with the port moving forward, be able to, like I said, be able to compete. That's what this is about. We invest millions and millions of dollars in apprenticeships programs. And we believe that there is a risk when you are on a project and you're not qualified, trained to do the job. I have visited some of these jobs. Not too long ago, I visited a job. Maybe I shouldn't say where it is, but I know that you're not willing to work with a developer anymore because I read it in the paper. But I talked to the workers, and I have concerns about their safety. They were on the very top of the building on stilts with no fall protection. And sometimes they're cutting corners. They're trying to get it done faster without concerns of safety. And so I've seen these things. And I see an underground economy. I did talk to the workers. The wages were everywhere. Some of those workers did not know who they were working for. And I would like to see some type of general contractor responsibility bill in bid documents when moving forward. I appreciate your time and listening to what I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next person I have on my list is Rory Silva.
Hello, thank you for your time. My name is Rory Silva. I'm a carpenter apprentice for Local 425. I've been an apprentice for 2.5 years now. I've worked both union, non-union jobs, private contracting, private security, been all over the map in regards to work. And I want to say that the Carpenters Union has been a huge change in the way that I have been able to live my life. Going from private construction to carpenters under the union, the jobs have been coming out a whole lot better than anything that I've ever been able to do under a private company. The safety regulations, the pay, the benefits, the pay specifically, is, if I'm working in this area, stays in this area. If we can work with you guys to get more jobs and more contracts, working for the city of Bellingham and the port specifically, I don't have to commute down to Seattle. I don't have to spend money in Seattle that I could be spending in our local community and helping to grow the local economy. Before this job, I never had a chance to work towards saving and purchasing a house. We all know that the housing market's a little tight these days with the interest rates and everything, but with this job, I'm able to save up some money to eventually work towards that dream and fulfill that dream, keeping my family here. Hopefully my son or my daughter will follow their own dreams, but knowing that union work and the unions are around and that they will pay good wages and keep us safe is a huge boon to this local area. So I would happily encourage you guys to go for union contractors and union work. Because if we're going down to Seattle, we're spending our money there and time away from our families just to have a better life when we could be doing that here instead. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next person on my list is Richard Williamson.
Good evening. How's it going? I've been a union journeyman for 5 years or 6 years now. Before that, I worked in the private industry, and it was extremely dangerous. Underpaid, overworked. The only time I've ever had an accident at work was when I worked privately. Coming to the union, I saw a whole new world of like what we should be doing in so many different instances with safety that I didn't even know. Because they don't want you to know that in private industry. They don't want you to ask any questions. They don't want you to ask your friends what they're making. In the union, everybody makes the same. It's on the same page. You don't have discrepancies with your workers. You don't have infighting and things like that. It's, but it, you know, within regards to healthcare, it's changed my life. You know, it's just, I think it's overall a better system. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not a very good public speaker, but thanks. But yeah, we would rather spend our time with our families and, like Rory said, you know, and spend our money in the places that we reside versus in other places. There's a lot of cutting corners with these other outfits, and I grew up in it, and I have a titanium plate in my foot because of cutting corners. Yeah, it just it opened up a whole new world for me, and I think the number one thing is that we have really good training that we invest in, and it sets us apart from people that are like, how come we do that? Oh, because Gary says that's how it's done. Well, you know, who's Gary? Well, Gary's dad said, you know, but there's no explanation. They say do it this way because we've always done it that way. But within the union, we go to school. We learn the correct way to do things and why to do them. And it makes us, we are more efficient, and you come out with a better product. So, yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Last person I have on my list is Zach McCowan. Did I get the last name right?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
I do have a Seahawks emblem too.
I want to know if Gary's in the room.
So, good evening, commissioners. My name is Zach McCown. I'm, as well as the other members who spoke here, a local carpenter, actually the president of Local 425. I really hope you guys can digest everything that was said. It's kind of hard for us to articulate everything that we do and why we're so passionate about it, because there's so much time that we would need to actually go over all this. The apprenticeship utilization is one of the most important parts of getting that free education and allowing, I can't speak for everyone, but I wasn't blessed with having the best childhood. And it was an opportunity for me, as not having succeeded in high school in certain avenues and being able to still land on my feet, have a family of 3 kids, have a wife that I've been with for 15 years, own a house, and have really that American dream that Rory is speaking to and saving up to get. Why are we here today? We're here because of what happened with Harcourt. We're gonna just be real and get that out of the way. Me and Miguel have visited that site several times and seen things that I don't think that this board would ever imagine as possible on a job, especially on your port. Workers who are getting robbed of their wages, safety conditions that would absolutely, well, you would never want to have one of your daughters or your sons on a job like that who could potentially die. And that's just the way the training that we go through with the union there's a reason for it. It's because people in the past have died on these jobs, right? And the training is so important moving forward to keep that safety instilled. And what I'm really asking today, I understand that we don't have a project like tomorrow, right? I'm asking that we potentially entertain the idea of a community workforce agreement, a project labor agreement, something within those lines. Potentially, if you guys would be interested, presenting the idea of putting together a committee with labor as well as the port to talk about future projects and how we can instill and get the right culture that the port deserves, get the right contractor that the constituents of this city deserve, and have the employees and the workforce of this city be able to have the opportunity to work on that job. We talked to several of the workers who are for Harcourt, and most of them, believe it or not, you know, which is crazy because most of our workers drive to Seattle, they were from Seattle. They didn't know who they worked for because they didn't actually have an employer. They worked for a gentleman who got them a job and took a percentage of what they made, and they had to pay them to get a job. It's called a labor broker. They're more prevalent than you would ever believe. And I'm not just trying to throw things at the wall. These happen on all types of jobs. And part of why we go to these meetings is to inform you guys to understand what is going on and the dangers of when you don't hire a responsible contractor and the values of an apprenticeship. So simply put, if we could, and if this board could consider having a committee to discuss some simple language about an apprenticeship utilization so that when you have these next contracts that come out for bid and they go out, that we have responsible contractors and people who can actually benefit in the community to build these next projects for the future. And that's really what I'm asking. And I thank everyone who stood up today. It's not easy to do this, to tell your story, but also to articulate it and what we're trying to do, and thank you. And I appreciate the time of this board to consider our comments. And I'd be open to entertain if there's any comments that you might have for me.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate
Okay.
it.
Absolutely.
And thank you all for coming and joining us and sharing. We have public comment continues. If there's anyone else in the room who didn't sign up who would like to provide public comment, you're welcome to come on up.
I'm Greg Seligson. I'm a union carpenter, been a union carpenter since 2006. I'm a local homeowner and landlord. I have raised 2 kids here, one still in Bellingham High. I live about a 15-minute walk away. And one of the points I want to make is that living here over the years, there's nothing more disappointing than having a big project and then having something go wrong. As a union carpenter, I'm able to buy my house, I'm able to go to work, like these gentlemen have said. Everything's thought through, it's systematic, you're trained, you have a lot that you bring to, you don't cut corners because that's not the way we work. So I want to throw in that often you get what you pay for. And as a local taxpayer, these projects are expensive. But if we have a system that insists that you take the lowest bid and you don't have a way to look at the details, you're going to get contractors that come in and bid a job, and it looks like the economical way to do it up front. But at the end of the project, that may not be the case. We had the county courthouse, which had problems, went on and on. We had the Bellingham High School, or was it, no, it was Watcom Middle School, that because they didn't have a fire watch after the welders did their job at the end of the day, the whole thing burned down. And where are you in those circumstances? So I just want to take the moment to say, consider weighting union contractors, because we do bring a lot of training, experience, and a systematized way of getting things done. And we enable people to buy houses, and it's easier. I would love to have a job at the port instead of having to drive a long way to go to work. So thank you for your time.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Anybody else in the room who would like to provide public comment?
Commissioner Shepard, could I interrupt here?
Yes, please.
Greg, just so you understand, the port does not have to take the lowest bid. And there are several times in the past when we have done exactly what you pointed out, looked at various things and decided not to take that lower bid and moved up. So just so you guys understand that we do not have to take the lowest bid. And correct me, Rob, if I'm wrong. And thank you, gentlemen, for speaking up. You're all heard.
Okay. I'll next open it up for anyone on Zoom. I did see there was a chat comment about providing comments for the budget. We will be having a specific hearing after our consent agenda about the budget, where there will be opportunities, but anyone who's on Zoom or in the room can provide public comment about any topic that we will be addressing today. So anybody on Zoom who would like to provide public comment?
This is Carrie. I don't see anybody.
Okay. We will have a second opportunity for public comment at the, oh, Laura, were you wanting to speak up?
Yeah, I didn't see a way to raise my hand up. I'm sorry.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I do want to testify related to the budget. My name's Laura Weiss, and I'm actually here today on behalf of Walk and Roll Bellingham. Walk and Roll is a nonprofit organization, and we're working to make walking and biking better for everyone in Bellingham. We currently have over 900 followers on social media, and our newsletter goes to over 300 people every month. And I'm here today in relation to your budget conversation to ask you to please consider adding bicycle lockers for people to use at both the airport and the ferry terminal. More and more people are using e-bikes and cargo bikes, which makes getting to major transportation hubs like the airport and ferry terminal by bike very viable, especially since these locations are in close proximity to many Bellingham neighborhoods. However, without a way to securely and safely park a bicycle, people with e-bikes or cargo bikes aren't able to ride to the airport or ferry terminal. The airport has, my understanding, over 2,000 car parking stalls. So we feel that adding perhaps a half a dozen or so bike lockers is absolutely reasonable and important. In fact, the port's own 2023 climate action strategy includes the goal of having safer, quote, safer and more accessible multimodal transportation options, end quote. We have seen data that there are folks in this community asking for this amenity and have been for many years. It's hard to measure demand exactly since there's no supply at all. We believe this is a build it, if you build it, they will come situation. Our understanding is that a bike locker might cost as much as $9,000 a piece. If the port installed about 10 bike lockers, for example, that might cost the port just under $100,000 in capital expenses, which when you look at the airport's operating expenses of $7.5 million is a small fraction. And also I wanted to mention, in preparing for this testimony, we found another company called Unipod, which provides modular bike parking and infrastructure. I mention that as another option that the port might want to look into. Either way, this would be a very small budget item that would help the port meet its climate goals and provide an important amenity and transportation option for our community. With bike lockers, people who want to could get to and from the airport and the ferry terminal without having to rely on a car. Simple, relatively inexpensive bike lockers would be a great addition to our port facilities. Thanks for considering our comments.
Thank you very much, Laura. Anyone else on Zoom wish to provide public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will have an additional opportunity for public comment at the end of our regularly scheduled business. Carrie, I think we're ready to move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Briscoe?
I have none.
Commissioner Bell?
No.
And I don't either. Go ahead and move to voting, Carrie.
Motion to approve consent agenda items A through C.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Passes 3-0. Our next item of business is to recess the public meeting and open a public hearing on the 2024 preliminary strategic budget.
Commissioner, the only thing I would say is that Laura Weiss's comments were more to the budget than they were to this, so I would just ask that we incorporate those comments into this public hearing.
Okay, I would agree with that.
Agreed.
And I did see Adrian taking some notes, and and I believe Adrian and Laura, Ms. Weiss, have already been in contact as well. All right, is there anyone in the room or on Zoom wishing to provide public comment around our preliminary strategic budget? Not seeing any. We've had an initial presentation. Now we have a hearing. Is the next step to move into ratification of this at our December meeting?
It'll be the next November meeting.
The meeting in November. Okay.
We'll have a public hearing and then ask you to approve.
That'll be November 21st.
All right. All right. If anyone has additional comments, go ahead, Commissioner Briscoe.
Yeah, so I think Laura brought up a very good point. for being able to lock things up. And I'm hoping that we can slide that into this year's budget and get that done for her. That'd be a request from me to look at that.
So rather than modify the existing budget, which is balanced pretty much from a cash flow perspective, we would ask the commission that there's a number of items that we could use towards this, and we'll bring that forward to you later in the year, once we hit the 2024 calendar year. I'm pretty confident we can find the funds in the existing budget, is a short way of saying that.
Okay, I'm good with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is something we've looked at in, for the airport, and I do know that these cargo bikes are getting much more popular. People are using them to get all over the place, and I can see people wanting to commute in different ways to some of our major hubs for transport, and the airport is one of those that we want to activate in as many ways as possible.
You don't know anybody that owns a cargo bike, do you?
Wouldn't.
No.
I do have one. So does our state senator. She's very passionate about them. All right. Anybody else? Okay, seeing no other comments, I'm going to close the public hearing on the 2024 preliminary strategic budget and reconvene the regular commission meeting. We have 2 action items ahead of us. First is Director of Marinas, Tiffany DeSimone.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Tiffany DeSimone, Director of Maritime. I'm here. I have one slide to present to you today. You have an action memo in front of you that does give the background of the Fisherman's Pavilion, and I'll just kind of summarize that background. You may recall in 2021 when the construction of the Fisherman's Pavilion was completed, I stood up here and said, we'll take a look and we'll analyze the use and we'll track the usage and then we'll report back to commission at a future date with those results. And so that's what this is. So I'd like to just start out by explaining in brief words what the current usage is. So the current way we operate the pavilion is the commercial fishermen have preferential, non-exclusive use October through May, and they book those reservations through our marina office, and it's $15 a day or $75 for a week. And then the meetings and events department books the rest of the month, so that's June through September, through that office to community members for public and private events. And that rate is $75 an hour with a 4-hour minimum. And so what the action memo is doing is recommending a change in those dates. And the recommendation comes from the information that's on the slide before you. So we tracked usage. You can see on the left is the commercial fishermen use, and then on the right are private events. And so the action memo is requesting that you authorize the executive director to approve a change in the calendar months that those get reserved. So it would be commercial fishermen would be able to use the same use that they've been using currently, but that's going to be recommended for January through May. And then it would be opened up to M&E and public and private events June through December. With that being said, we have had instances outside of those guidelines where we've worked collaboratively with all the stakeholders and been able to agree to some other usage during the off times for the Marine Trades job fair, dockside market, events such as that. So we recommend approval on this, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Briscoe, I'm going to start with you. Do you have any questions or comments?
Well, just some comments. I'd like everyone that's listening or will go back and look at this recording to understand that I brought this forward as a commercial fisherman. I know that most of our gear work is done after the first of the year. And I thought that the pavilion would be better used, as we saw it wasn't used by us. It would be better used after the first of the year by the fishermen till the spring when we leave. Most guys are still fishing, or they've come back from a season in Alaska in October and they're gone November, December, and come back after the first of the year. I'm still fishing down in Hood's Canal commercially, and we're not going to work on any gear until springtime. So it didn't make sense to me after watching what went on that we should tie up this public asset with a non-use. And so if someone has an issue with this, I want them to direct it to me, not to our staff. This wasn't brought forward by the staff, and we're waiting for it to be brought forward. So I did. And the other thing is that this should be understood that this is not written in stone. Staff is willing to work with all parties involved to make sure this works. So we're going to try this. We tried something else and it didn't really work the way we thought it would. So we're trying this now. So if someone's upset about this, please contact me directly and I'll answer your questions. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Bell?
If I'm a fisherman and I come in the middle of December and I need to use the pavilion, will I get first dibs?
Yeah, if there's nothing already booked in there, we're happy to schedule if it's open.
So it's not off the market, it's just a significant difference in usage. I actually thought we'd get more than 11 days of usage by commercial fishermen during this time period.
Yeah, and we see a little bit more each year, and it's weather dependent too. There's a whole bunch, and it's getting the word out there. We kind of thought with our process by making it sign up in the harbor office that would be helpful for that clientele, if you will, because it's typically not planned out weeks or months in advance, right? It's like, oh, I need somewhere today, and so that's more of that kind of usage.
Am I correct that it says 68 days, that there are 11 rentals that cover a period of 68 days? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So these are multi-day rentals
Yep.
when people are using them, so.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, all right. I do like Commissioner Briscoe's point that this is not set in stone, just like we have reevaluated the usage. I think that is something we continue to do. If this gets approved and we see a increased need and we're hearing demand that is in excess of what is available for commercial fishing use, we always have the right to revisit. And I would hope the staff would bring those questions and concerns, if they're receiving them, to us so we're able to know.
Understood, and we'll do that.
I also wanted to thank Jim Kyle for his helpful suggestion and support of this, and his recognition that there has been a really nice synergy when Dockside Market has fallen under the same period when commercial fishing folks are repairing their gear or working on their gear, and it just provides a great opportunity for the public to interface and for everybody to do some learning.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd encourage the fisher folks to join the dockside markets. I think it adds a lot to the whole vibe of the market. So.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this?
Thank you.
Okay, Carrie, if you please.
Motion to authorize Executive Director to approve a usage update to the Fisherman's Pavilion guidelines.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Carries 3-0. Our second item is environmental. It will be presented by Environmental Project Manager Ben Howard.
Yep. Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Ben Howard, Remediation Program Manager. Today I'm presenting the action item for authorization to execute a settlement and mutual release agreement for remediation costs at the former Yorkston Oil lease area. As shown in the opening slide, the site's located within the Bellingham waterfront at 2801 Roeder Avenue. The property is port-owned and has been leased to various tenants that operated a bulk fueling terminal at the site. And the parties include Yorkston Oil Company, ExxonMobil, Chevron USA, and their predecessors. Numerous investigations have determined that the historical fueling operations resulted in hazardous substances at the site, including petroleum in soil and groundwater. The parties have entered into a series of previous funding agreements to complete the investigation, develop alternative approaches, and followed with design work for the remedial action. The party's consultant has drafted a set of plans and specifications to implement the remedial action, as well as developed an engineer's cost estimate. I just wanted to note, too, that this project will be conducted as an independent remedial action without ecology oversight or grant funding. So this settlement, along with the other agreements, allows the port to recover costs towards cleanup. The settlement includes past costs incurred by the port during initial investigations, so the pre-funding agreements. The settlement also includes costs to implement the remedial action, which have been estimated to be approximately $3.1 million, with the port's contribution of 10% of the $3.1 million. And the port is currently working to obtain all necessary permits and will implement the construction through a competitive bid advertisement. And so thank you. Yeah, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, thanks, Ben. Commissioner Bell?
Did you tell us how many cubic yards you were cleaning up? Do you have an estimate?
That is a question I should have forecasted, and I will have to get that number back to you.
I know where you live. That's all I've got.
All right, Commissioner Briscoe?
No, I have none.
And you might have said, what is the nature of the contaminants? Is this petroleum?
Yeah, petroleum-based, yeah. It's from old fuel terminals, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any further comments myself.
I do have one question.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Ben, are they going to chase out the underground pipes that are in there? What are they doing there?
Yes, if we do
There was a
encounter any
pipeline
pipes.
that went out towards cold storage.
Yeah, yes, during the excavation, if we do encounter any pipes, the pipes will be removed and or, capped at the excavation limits.
Okay, right at the site.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Hearing no further questions or comments, Carrie, if you please.
Motion authorizing the executive director to execute a settlement and mutual release agreement for the portion of the Yorkston oil site.
Commissioner Bell?
Yes.
Commissioner Briscoe?
Yes.
I'm also yes. Carries 3-0.
All right,
Thank you, Ben.
Commissioners.
All right, that brings us to our relatively short agenda for the day. At the end of our regularly scheduled business, we have another opportunity for public comment. I will check and see if we have anybody in the room who would like to provide public comment. Or anyone on Zoom.
I don't see anyone on Zoom.
Okay. Okay, well, we will move into other business then. And I'll start out with Commissioner Briscoe.
Okay, question, I think you gentlemen, got the, that email from Doug Cahill, I think it's how you pronounce his last name, about the foam at our airport. Or the foam he's putting forward that could be used at the airport. Are we going that way, or Rob, have you seen that email as well?
Yeah, we saw that come in. It's been passed off onto our airport team. There has been a new foam that has been approved by the FAA, but our airport team is going to run the traps on this one and see if this particular gentleman's is approved. I don't think we're quite ready to commit to a provider of the foam yet, but we're getting really close here. The FAA's actions were just taken recently too, so there's a lot of little research need to be done to make sure we buy a foam that has been authorized and approved by the FAA. I'm not saying his isn't, but we also don't know that it has been.
I kind of read that as this is a sales guy looking for a sale more than it was.
That's what I read it as well. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Well, I just thought I'd bring it forward. I didn't know where we were with that stuff, but that's good. When's our next ship due in?
We don't have an exact date for the ship yet. We believe it's mid to end of December, but they've been running behind recently from the dates they told us, anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. So it could be anywhere towards the end of January.
Okay, all right. I was at the council meeting this past, I don't know, it was a week ago now, I guess, something like that. And there were some comments made there about the port. I'd kind of like to refute them on our time here. There was a gentleman that stood up and accused the Port of Bellingham Commission of being on the take, financially paid off to put a metal shredder out by the on the old cement plant property. And I like to clear the air on that because it really eats at me when people do things like that. Very unfactual, very untrue. Port of Bellingham has nothing to do with where ABC's metal shredder goes. We're not pushing for it to be put there. We're not pushing for it to be put anywhere. That's ABC's decision and the county's decision. We are receiving metal and shipping it. We're a shipping terminal. That's what we're doing. We're not running a metal shredding operation. We have no monetary involvement with that at all. And I'd just like to say, if you think the commissioner's on the take, come on down and look at the public records of what we get paid. We don't get paid enough to be talked about like that. I'm very angered about it. So start speaking with some sense, people, when you start talking about the Port Commission of Bellingham. We're about as transparent as it gets. The other things that kind of irritated me about that council meeting is the unfactual statements made by people when they get up to testify about people. And I don't know if this is the place to air it or not, but if you don't have the facts, don't open your mouth. Make sure you're factual when you speak, because there's going to be retaliation for people if they keep saying the things that they say by me. I'm not very happy with the way the Port of Bellingham is being treated about this. We're doing just about everything we can to mitigate noise. I'm sure there's more we can do and we'll figure it out. But understand, we don't have anything to do with the shredding plant other than that metal will probably come to our port facility and be shipped overseas. Your recycled metal, your stuff that you don't want in your backyard. It's always don't put it in my backyard. So you took it out of your backyard and you put it in our backyard because it needed to be recycled. Your washers, your dryers, your refrigerators, your cars, everything you people are use that are screaming at us that we're recycling. You used it. It's your junk that's going across our dock. Just remember that when you want to point a finger. It's your junk. That's all I've got.
Anything else, Commissioner Briscoe?
No, did I break up there?
No, we were all just letting that settle in.
I was trying to figure out,
That wasn't all I wanted to say, but that's as far as I wanted to go.
you were a little unclear. I'm not sure how you feel about that, Bobby. Trying to figure it out.
Well, good. All right. Anything else, Commissioner Briscoe?
No, that's all I have. Thank you.
Well, I'll step in out of turn and just congratulate you on it. The results are not in or official, but on re-election. Running unopposed, congratulations on that, and thank you for continuing to serve.
Thank you.
All right, Commissioner Bell, any items?
You suck up. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. Gentlemen, thanks for coming. And I just wanted to talk about Harcourt just a little bit, just because it has been in the news and I have been contacted by a couple of reporters. I just wanted to get a couple of things on the record. The first one is we've had an opportunity to walk through those buildings a number of times, and I don't think there's any construction like it on the waterfront. I mean, most of what we're seeing is stick and wood, and we're actually seeing actual construction that is done with concrete and really some top drawer amenities that are going into that. And the issue on the condos is really a matter of timing, financing, and unmet expectations. It has nothing to do with the product that is on the ground. Trust me, I heard everything you guys said, but we have walked through that operation, and it is a well-done facility. That does not negate what you brought to the table. We heard you loud and clear about the safety issues, and where the labor is coming from. Heard you loud and clear. We are selling that property fee simple. So when we do that, we sell the property to a contractor who buys the ground and then is responsible for their construction. So that's really what I wanted to get on the record. And then I did want to also jump in on Bobby's comments and put a couple of things straight for what I also heard as being misinformation. And the biggest problem I've got with misinformation is that when you get into a political battle like we are obviously involved in with the South Hill group, it is a political battle, and hyperbole creates headlines and creates emotion. And there are legitimate fears being created. And I wanted just to set a couple of things straight, because when you get into this kind of a battle, you tend to minimize your opponent's position and maximize your position. And in that argument, the truth gets lost. But I did want to say that that project does create 56 total jobs over 2 shifts. There's 22 on the dock in one shift, 28 on another, for a total of 56. The wages that are paid on that dock are $60,000 a day for the labor that we use. And it is our laborers local that is involved in that labor. So the numbers that are being thrown out there just need to be corrected. It's not 7, which we heard. It is not 18, which we've heard. When we do a full day shift, there's 22 in one, there's 28 in another, and it is $60,000 a day in wages being paid to good union laborers, workers. I also want to talk about the threat to industrial ground. We have a very short supply of industrial ground, and the reaction has been, we have something going on industrial ground and we don't like it, so we're going to limit industrial ground because it's impacting where we can put low-income housing. That really is backwards. We have limited industrial ground. We should be protecting our industrial ground because that's where we create work. And housing should be considered in places that are not near industrial ground. So rather than saying, let's limit what we do on industrial property, let's have a conversation about where does housing belong? And does housing belong near industrial ground where we have to create work? We can't do industrial work in the middle of a subdivision. And if you're going to plan your subdivisions, don't do it on our industrial ground. And there's a conversation to be had about how do we create buffers if you need the housing. So the cart is before the horse with anybody trying to limit what happens on industrial ground. We have a limited opportunity. You want to put in low-income housing. It doesn't have to be done near industrial ground. As a matter of fact, I think that's, how do I say that? That's repugnant to me, to put our lowest income people in that because you know you can, right? What kind of a statement does that say? So we should be asking our leaders in our other governments to be looking for places to put housing, urban growth areas, and let us do industry on industrial ground. And I say that knowing that whatever we do at the port, we impact somebody. And housing has been the biggest problem. You go to the airport, our complaints come because the planes are flying over houses. And yet they want us to modify the airport. And no one would take away the airport. It's a tremendous asset. You go to the farmland of this community, in certain times of the year, you can't help but get the smell from the farmland. It doesn't matter where you go, there's going to be an impact of some sort in the places that you live. You go out into Ferndale, you're going to be impacted by a garbage dump. You're going to be impacted by trucks going to the refinery. There's impacts everywhere. But the idea that you would put housing closer into industrial ground is something that I think we need to rethink and heavily rethink. My request is that we do something like that as a port, maybe put an interest group together to start talking about how to put stakeholders at the table so that we can talk about what's important and how we can go about this. The immediate reaction has been a knee-jerk reaction, in my opinion, to make the complaining go away. And what happens is we lose jobs, we lose industrial ground, we use some of our greatest assets in the process, and that's what's happened here. And my fear is that we're going to take our most valuable property and something that I personally believe that I was elected to steward, and that is jobs, that is industrial development, that is, anyway, that's what's key to me. So if we could at least sit down and have a discussion about who should be at the table and how do we protect the industrial ground that we've got, how do we promote more work on these places, and where should housing go? And what does that look like moving forward? I think that's my soapbox. I've got more, but I think I'll leave it there.
Okay. All right. There's definitely been a lot of conversation about that value of industrial land, and I do think that this coming up to a question with the county council is an opportunity for us to do some more visioning. You know, we're certainly a community that's growing, that area is growing, and I think it is kind of a right time for us to do some future casting of how is that going to look in the future? What do truck routes look like in the future? What does some of the potential for redevelopment look like there? And what, you know, I'm hearing from Commissioner Bell certainly, and what I think is important is for us to make sure we're retaining land resources that serve diverse employment opportunities. And I think that's what we see out there. We see a very little supply of that light industrial or industrial land in our community. And whether it's, you know, hearing from our friends here at the Carpenters Union about just the reality that people need different directions to go after high school for employment. And we need to be a community that supports a range of employment opportunities for everybody who lives here, regardless of if they're getting a degree from Western or they're getting a certificate or an apprenticeship program schooling. We've got to have opportunities for a flexible workforce and a community that is resilient and has a resilient economy. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work with the county exec and the team there to envision that future out there. For the issue that came up in public comment about apprenticeship requirements, I do remember pre-COVID, and I think this is kind of something I dropped the ball on, we were having some more conversations about apprenticeship programs. We were looking at what the county has done. I remember the county adopted some apprenticeship language with a certain threshold of about a size of a project and triggering mandatory apprenticeship opportunities. And I think how we left it is we were going to study that and see if there were any positive or negative impacts from that county decision, and then entertain if we would have a recommendation for implementation here at the port. So I don't know, I think that's one of those COVID things that started and fell off the rails. It would be interesting for me to at least revisit what the county has done, what the feedback has been, and does it make sense for us to entertain that here?
Sure, Commissioner. There's a couple things came out of that, those apprenticeship discussions. And one of them was the Marine Trades Apprenticeship Program that we have with the big help of the Working Waterfront Coalition, Debbie Granger spearheaded. We've been helping fund that and get that kick-started. I think that's proven to be very successful for the marine trades industry. The second piece of that was, you're correct, we were going to look at the county's programs. We did do that. We found out what the dollar thresholds of their projects were. We have very few projects meet that dollar threshold. And first blush, You may think we have a lot more, but when we talk about the Harcourt project, as Commissioner Bell alluded to earlier, it's important to know we sold that property to Harcourt. They weren't a contractor that we hired to come in and do this work. And when we sell a property like that, we can't put stipulations on what kind of union or what kind of labor they use going forward. We've sold them the property, they own it, they pretty much have quiet enjoyment of being able to develop that property. The stipulations we did have was the timing that they got that done in order to have further options to buy further property from us. They've now, in our opinion, forfeited that right to buy the further property from us. But we did look down at the apprenticeship role that the county put in. We can look that again. We can see what kind of threshold makes sense for the port. I think that's where we left it off, as we were trying to figure out what made sense and what didn't make sense. What's the dollar threshold of where we would require apprenticeships? Obviously, on a very small project, you can't load it up with apprenticeship labor because it becomes unwieldy. It becomes not financially feasible to do the project at that point. But we do have some bigger projects that we occur maybe once every couple of years or once a year that it might make sense to do. So if you'll let the staff go back and take a look at that, refresh our memory as to what those discussions were, and we'll come back to you at the next meeting with that information.
Yeah, I'm thinking projects like the shipping terminal.
Correct.
There's a, we don't do projects, we have a $8 million grant from the federal government to do upgrades to the shipping grants from the federal government to do work here. When we do, it's a unique opportunity.
Actually, a mentor of mine and a longtime businessman and resident of Whatcom County, in fact, Bellingham, Steve Colgis, on the fishing vessel Terry K, passed away last week. So I'd just like to put that out there. Thanks.
Okay, appreciate that. Thanks for mentioning it. And our thoughts are certainly with the family on that one. All right, any other items? Anything from staff? Okay. We are done.